how do you predict future trends and where the industry's going to stay on top of it so you don't become irrelevant with so many competitors out there?
Like find a supplier, order it.
Where do you find a supplier? How would you order it? Minimum order quantities. Can you do one? Can you test it? How much does it cost? Do you have to like proprietary molds? You know what I mean? Like really try to break it down simply. I know there's a lot there, but what advice would you give to that 18-year-old that wants to like get into a product-based business and trying to get that product on it at their front doorstep? What is the worst investment you have ever made?
Worst investment.
Welcome back to the Amplifi Podcast. Super excited about today because we're going to go over an entrepreneur who made Forbes 30 under 30 list. He's 29 years old, started this thing in the back of his trailer. He is the owner and founder of Gym Reapers, one of the most popular gym apparel brands. And what's really cool about how he did it is he utilized his knowledge in social media to go viral, build amazing products, and then turn this into 9 figures in sales, all before he's 30 years old. Just like all my podcasts though, we find people with tons of success and we break it down for the everyday person. What exactly would they do? How would they do it? He actually went through, if he was to start a business today, what would it be? And it was actually slightly different than what he's doing today. So really cool stuff inside this episode. So hopefully you find it valuable. Roc, thanks for coming. Super excited. Honestly, like we just met 20 minutes ago, but we've run in so many of the same circles. Chandra actually used to work here. Looks like she's coming to work for you. We have a lot of the same friends. So good to finally meet you.
Likewise.
Excited to talk through your journey. But walk us through like just quick intro, if you would. Where are you at? Where do you live? What do you do? All that kind of stuff. Just like 60-second little intro.
Okay. Yeah. I'm the founder and CEO of Gym Reapers. I started that over 10 years ago. Started in the back of a trailer with $5,000. I invest in real estate. I have about 500,000 square feet of real estate. That's awesome. Love to train, love building businesses. And, that's pretty much all I do. So that's the gist.
I love it.
Yeah.
So first part of every single podcast, I tell all my followers on social media that they get to ask the first like 5 to 7 questions. So we just pull them. Sometimes these are crazy. Sometimes they're in line. So I'm just going to shoot stuff at you. Some of them are kind of fun. First one was funny. It's almost a tongue twister. Gym Reapers rocks, but does rock with any crypto investments?
Crypto.
Do you do any crypto inside of your investment world?
Did you see the thing I posted yesterday?
No, I didn't.
It was from me in 2013. I posted Bitcoins at 900. I missed it.
Really?
It was like something about like I regret not buying it at 900.
Shoot.
So I found out about Bitcoin on a forum when I was like 14. I was on the bodybuilding.com MISC forum.
Yeah.
And like if you know the MISC, like that's where a lot of brands started.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin was like sub $10. And I remember telling my dad, I'm like, we should buy this. I never bought any. In pre-2017, like, that run up in 2017, I was in it there, sold a lot of me and my roommate were mining Ethereum in my house. It's not like we were mining a ton, but and then I just started buying Bitcoin back this year.
Cool.
Just because they're just printing too much money.
Yep. Yeah. So you've dabbled in it for a while then. Most people on here usually don't even know what crypto is or have any money in it.
Yeah. No, yeah. I've been watching it. I think it just pumps and it's hard to track. It's not really reliable.
Yeah.
Up until like a year ago, the government was kind of not really clear on what the rules were.
Yeah.
But then you got BlackRock and these ETFs coming out. It's not going away. Yeah. So it's smart to buy it before it's too expensive.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. How do you stay in shape while managing a business and all the stresses that come from it?
Yeah. Discipline and time management. Just wake up early and hit the gym, eat healthy.
What does your like daily routine look like? Are you one of those that are like every day looks the same, super structured, or?
Try to be. Yeah. I like wake up, go to the gym by like 5:36.
Dang.
If I don't go in the morning, I'll just go at night. We have a gym at the office. So, and then, office by like 7:30, work till 7 or 8 and then lift.
So you're still pulling 12-hour days in the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Respect.
I mean, there's a, some of our team and we're just grinding it out, Yeah.
That's it. Okay. What do you think? Some of these are really good questions, guys. Good job. So what do you think e-commerce's impact will be on industrial real estate? Do you see more and more, you're in real estate, you're in e-commerce. Do you see more and more people trying to gobble up industrial for e-commerce, or do you feel like it's going overseas and we won't really feel it?
It's a good question. All the real estate I am moving into is industrial. Like that's the point. I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
It already is. You know, you got like those massive REITs that, like Prologis and these other massive funds that just buy these Class A industrial. You see Adler building a lot of them locally, and a lot of it is these brands that either start small FBA brand, like Amazon brands that need a space to store their inventory. They'll use like those contractor garages.
Yep.
Like there's like massive vacancy in the valley for those. And the thing is there's not a ton of industrial land. It kind of runs from like locally from like Caldwell to Nampa up to Boise through like that Emerald Pine Executive.
Yep.
But all that's owned and consolidated.
Yeah.
And so, it'll keep compounding. I think the ease of, not the ease, but the simplicity of building a brand and an e-commerce company from nothing to $1 million. You know, you need to store your inventory at somewhere. And Amazon has their warehouses that, give you some leverage, but you still need 500, 1,500, 2,500 square feet. And then as you scale, a lot of times business owners will lease, 50, 100, 150,000 square feet from, an industrial fund, like a PE fund.
Yeah.
But it's compounding. Like the vacancy in Boise up through 21 was massive. Like you couldn't find real estate. And then they overbuilt it. That's why you see all these buildings everywhere now.
Yeah.
And it's still like, it'll absorb, like there's tons of businesses moving here. And I think that's around the country. So yeah, I think they're synonymous.
I feel like Boise's also just getting to the point in growth where we're going to start seeing more and more of a need for industrial. So I played ball in Utah, and Utah is like 10 years ahead of us growth wise, if you kind of think of it. But in the last 10 years inside of Utah, there are so many brands that start from blender bottle to blankets to like, you name it, just a lot of like social media, e-commerce brands.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm starting to see that more and more inside of Boise.
Totally.
That we're getting to a population size, enough people are here where people are starting to become self-employed, see the success, and that need for industrial is going to become bigger and bigger inside of our market. But then you can apply that to any market, no matter where you're at. You get to an eventual size where industrial is not really needed inside of a metropolitan area. But as soon as you break through that, it starts compounding pretty quick. And I feel like we're just about there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's massive correlation.
Okay, the last questions from the followers that we'll kind of get, and then we'll jump into your personal journey. What's the best suggestion for marketing merch as a secondary product? So someone has a brand and they want to spin off a merch line off their brand. One, do you think that's a good idea? And then what would be your suggestion on how to get that off the ground? It's kind of a big question, but
yeah, it kind of depends on like what you're selling.
Yeah.
But I would say like, why are you selling merch if you could sell your main product?
Yeah.
Like I would focus on the main product.
Interesting.
And build a funnel around that.
Double down.
Yeah. Like look at like On It, right? Supplement company, like 80% of the revenue is Alpha Brain. So it's like why, they're not going to go and I'm sure they are talking about or doing like protein or some other product, right?
Yeah.
But if your money's all made there, just make different variations, different sizes, different, you're putting all your dollars behind it. Everyone's familiar with it. That gets people in, and then you can, remarket them stuff. But trying to build a funnel around merch or what's your goal?
Yeah.
If you want people wearing your stuff, like just give it out.
Yeah.
But your main product should be making you your profit.
Interesting. And I think that's good advice. There's a lot of people, especially in the content creating world, that everyone tries to spin off merch in one way or the other. Like I feel like every influencer is going to run some merch line.
Is that an ego play though?
Yeah.
Like
what is the real
focus on, right. Yeah. Like I think like, there's a ton of examples of guys just like everyone knows that Alex Hormozy tank top. Like if he sold those, people would buy it, but it's like, he's not going to build his whole business focused on merch, right? Yeah. It's just kind of there, like, or the Boring Company.
Yeah.
Like how he came up with the flamethrower. Like that was just, it's more of a marketing thing.
Yeah.
But you have to do that right. And I think just focusing on the main thing is that's where people start getting misaligned, misfocused when they want to do everything. Yeah. And it doesn't work. You have to focus.
100%. Okay, let's jump into the actual, how did Jim Reaper start? So you grew up here, went to Rocky, which is like 10 miles down the road. Have you always been into lifting? Like, is that where it started? Was a love for lifting, and then it kind of evolved? Walk me through how you got to the point of like, I'm going to launch gym reapers.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like a direct line, but when I was 14, I was, that's when you go to high school and you're playing football and they get you in the weight room.
Yep.
And that was pre-Rocky being built. So
Yep.
we were at Meridian. And when I started training, I was like, oh, I like weightlifting way more than I like football or any sports. And so just got super obsessed with that. I got into high school at like 125 pounds and I left at like 210.
Dang.
So I was pretty obsessed with training. I super disciplined. And around like, I think junior or sophomore year, got into the powerlifting team. And there's a local guy. He doesn't compete anymore, but Jesse Norris, we got to training together out at Columbia High School. And Jesse holds the world record for the deadlift and the squat.
I did not know that was a local guy.
Yeah,
That's
he deadlifts. I think he still holds it.
Yeah.
But there's more guys. But he's like 200 pounds. Deadlifted 830,
Jeez.
squatted 760 or something. And so I would work out with him. And you're wearing the more classic brands that they're the older brand names.
Yeah. And
so I was super familiar with equipment and just loved like the old school brands like Animal Pack. What else? There wasn't the crazy amount of supplement companies there is today.
Yeah.
But bodybuilding.com was based here. And so post high school, I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. I ended up working at bodybuilding.com for a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And, you kind of see needs and wants of customers there. And kind of somewhere along the way, I ended up with the name, but I was just kind of screen printing shirts. This would be like 2014.
Okay.
So like a couple years out of high school.
Yeah.
Screen printing shirts, didn't really know how to acquire customers, didn't know how to run traffic. I didn't know any, like I was 19. I have no education.
Yeah.
Didn't really know finance or business or, how margins work. And so just screen printing shirts, hold them around, just flip them out of my trunk. Like everybody at BBCom, a lot of those guys work for me now, or work with us now, and I'll run into them and they still have the shirts.
That's so cool.
And, it took time, but over time, you learn about margins, you learn about like branding and, building a repeatable sales funnel and all these things, right? And I realized I had to switch my approach.
Yeah.
And so I just started looking for another product. And around like mid 2016, maybe early 2016, I found the knee sleeves. And I was just like, okay, like I wear knee sleeves all the time.
Yeah.
From squatting, and they had compression, they had support, and I was I was familiar with the types of neoprene, the stitching, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't like an expert, but taught myself how to find a supplier and import, and I'd saved up like $5,000, so I ordered. I spent the $5,000 on ordering 500 knee sleeves, threw them up, and they started selling, and just continued to compound that.
Okay, where did you throw those up? Shopify, Amazon, Facebook, friends? Like, how did you get product moving?
Yeah. It was Shopify and Amazon.
Okay.
And it's just trial and error. It's like learning how to run ads, learning creative content. And it's different today. Like, I don't think you could do that today.
Yeah.
I think today I would probably go to Tik Tok Shop.
Yeah.
And I think even if you don't have a product, like if somebody's interested in making money online, just go to Jim Reaper's store once you have 5,000 followers, and we're training people on how to do this. But you can refer product. Like that didn't even exist.
Yeah.
Like one of my first ideas was building like niche sites. This is how I learned a lot about SEO. And so I built a niche site, but I was making like $20 a month. This is like 2013, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a tattoo site. So like how to heal tattoos and all that stuff. It's probably still up. But like looking at how much I was making there, $300 a year, like nothing.
Yeah.
And I was just learning, right?
Yeah.
But there's people on Tik Tok Shop that are like my age then, making $100K a month.
Yeah.
Because you have demand generation and demand capture in the same platform. And so you can post a video and convert them in one channel. Mm-hmm. Like you can't do like the process to go through a niche site is you have an inquiry, you go to Google, you search it, you hopefully click my site, you read the article. Like it's just different.
Yep.
And so like that was what I had to do back then. But today it's gotten more streamlined it's honestly, it's way easier. So that's the approach today is TikTok shops. It's, building affiliate networks through TikTok shop instead of, the hard way, which took years.
Yep.
And I didn't quite understand, the mechanics of Google and Amazon and Facebook, Instagram at the time. So it's shifted a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Tons there. Going to try to pull out a couple different nuggets. First one, let's go to TikTok because I 1,000% agree. And what's cool is whenever you see something pop up, look at what all the big players are doing, trying to compete. And that's a sign that it's on. So Amazon probably 2 years ago rolled out, like, they tried to almost get in the social media world of products. So on your Amazon app to this day, there's like an explore page. No one's ever clicked on it. At least I haven't.
Yeah.
It's kind of pointless. But they realized exactly what you just said, that platforms were going to come out with an idea of lead generation and product capture and delivery in a single platform.
Totally.
And that was going to destroy Amazon. And so it was probably 2 years ago, they rolled out this explore page. I clicked it one time and was like, this is weird, but it's people making little videos. It's literally TikTok for Amazon, but that's because they realized the power that TikTok had, and it had leaked that TikTok Shop was coming. TikTok Shop, in my opinion, is the modern day drop shipping like opportunity. Drop shipping, this is like kind of almost what you got into. Drop shipping 8-10 years ago was a massive opportunity just because not everyone was playing the game. You had to have some knowledge of SEO and branding and how to get it into FBA. And I actually have an FBA company as well. Very, very similar. You used to be able to buy reviews on Amazon, and now you have to compete with all those companies that bought 1,000 reviews. TikTok Shop, though, you need 5,000 followers, a phone, and like the ability to capture a little bit of attention. And you can make a lot of money on TikTok Shop. It's mind blowing. So for people that are wondering like where to start, I think that was genius, spot on, and exactly where I would go.
Yeah, no, it's such a simple way. Like if you have 5,000 followers and you're not afraid to put yourself on, you don't even have to put yourself on camera. You could hold the product up. We've had people like just repeat the same videos over and over, and the algorithm will pick, a couple and nuke them to like 2 million views, and the person will make 10 grand. And then they'll just rotate products. And I think most products on TikTok, from talking to their team, it's like they have a 9-month life cycle. And so you get a hot brand, and which our brand is big on TikTok. We'll put a new product up, it'll pump it. I don't know why the algorithm does it. It's not, you don't get that kind of insight through Facebook or Google. But then, it'll nuke it to like tens of thousands of sales a month. And, with Facebook or with Amazon, the demand capture aspect, like all the platforms, like Facebook wants to drive you to Facebook shop. Google has been converting a lot of their stuff to kind of keep it more closed loop, but they don't have like the engine that people they have the search engine, but they don't have like kind of a feed that people mindlessly scroll on. And so, you'll probably see some sort of, I think even Amazon announced like a partnership with the platforms to compete against a TikTok shop.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's the area to start. Like it's also like there's no barrier to entry. Like anybody can go on there and crank.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So you have a brand, you've done knee sleeves, you're starting to sell them. I'm assuming through Amazon, PPC campaigns in Amazon, A/B testing, just figuring out what works. I'm assuming that's kind of where you started figuring out about marketing, or were you doing social media marketing back then?
No, yeah, I'd been just learning. I think from 2014 through like, I mean, even today, but like at that time, just learning about running traffic, building a brand, importing. So every little aspect of the business, I understand and can speak to. And yeah, you just kind of trial and error, run ads. Can you use influencers to talk about your products that drive back to your site? All these things compound. And then you learn from the mistakes and you don't make them again. And then it's just time under tension to get the result, right? So it's just once you don't make those mistakes anymore, whereas like somebody starting out is going to go make those mistakes. And I had a lot of good mentors, that taught me nuances. Paid a guy $5,000 to teach me how to run Amazon ads. Paid an agency a couple grand a month to run our Facebook and Google, but then you become friends with those guys and then you're learning more. And I'm in a ton of group chats with, guys that run massive companies, and we're just sharing like ideas or thoughts or what's working for you here, and at a certain point you don't really learn off of like a course or a video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I don't learn off that stuff. But it'll be a conversation with somebody who's running a massive brand or a COO of a a Lululemon type of business. And maybe even that's too big. Let's just say like a CEO of a $200 million company.
Yeah.
Like those guys are going to have way more applicable knowledge that
Yeah.
I could learn from and implement than like anything else that's going to influence me. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. As far as creating a brand, you said you came up with the word Gym Reapers. Did you hire someone to like build logos and craft a brand, or was that all just you kind of trial and erroring as well? I feel like that's one of the hardest parts with drop shipping and everything else. There are millions of people that put products out there. You can source from Alibaba. We'll talk in sourcing here in just a second because I want people to learn how to source. But in my opinion, your greatest strength has actually been branding. Yeah. So how did you get Gym Reapers to a legitimate household brand, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's not like, I started, 2014?
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just build a brand overnight, but the name was there. You get your domain names, get all your social media. Initially, I was posting just like motivational pictures on Instagram. Just wake up in the morning, post something. And that's when Instagram's algorithm was really like popular. Like you could just get 1,000 likes and it's actual followers.
Yeah.
And then they throttled it around 2018. Mm-hmm. But the logo, we were doing like streetwear designs, and the logo actually came off of this design of we built like a muscle guy, like kind of like the Gold's Gym logo.
Yeah.
And we just popped the head off, and that's the skull. So it was just like a happenstance thing. I didn't have a logo for 3 years.
Really?
So no, and it didn't really bother me.
Yeah.
I hired a gal, and I still go back to this email, and the logo she was probably outsourcing it to like some terrible firm.
Yeah.
And just charging me way too much. And I was like 19, so I didn't know any better. But like I never used those logos. They were pretty bad. And you just over time you find a logo, and the skull's perfect.
Yeah.
And building a cohesive brand guideline where when people look at it, it resonates to a level of understanding, like an emotional understanding. Mm-hmm. And I think that just takes time. And it's hard to keep a team oriented around that, because every person we bring on, they have to have time to learn and observe. Well, do we use these words? Do we use these colors? Do we use these models? Do we use these do we make these products? And so you're building to a an ethos of what you want that to stand for.
Yeah.
And a lot of it just resonates off of like how I think and who I am. All of it resonates like that. And my sister's played a big part in, crafting the imagery, and just like we're pretty synced up. She designs a lot of the products and was the photographer initially. And, you just kind of, it's morphed if you go way back. And we'll keep getting it better and better. Yeah. We have a great creative director, a great CMO, and they're just doing a really good job of just fortifying that. But yeah, the logo, like there's an aspect of having a great logo and brand name, but a lot of it's product too. Like, do you have a great product quality?
Yep.
And then can you maintain product quality by having a good supply chain? And so I'm hoping I'm answering your question there.
But I think I think what you said is really wise. Same thing here with even my social media platform or Fulcrum or any of my businesses. So many people obsess over getting the perfect product, the perfect name, the perfect logo, the perfect everything before launch. Mm. But a natural creation of brand, in my opinion, is actually the best brand because it's going to encapsulate who you are. Like I posted my first 100 videos in front of a blue wall. Zero thought went into that. Like it was literally just the only wall in my office that I could take a video in front of that didn't look like crap. So I did it. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, that's your blue. So now it's on websites and it's in logos and it's everywhere. But you don't have to perfect logos and brands and everything else from day one. In my opinion, putting a good product out there that sells itself and then carefully crafting a brand over time is something that will mean a lot more to people.
Well, I think it depends on your goal, right? Like Nike started as Blue Ribbon, right?
Yeah.
Have you read the book?
Great book.
And then if you look at like Lulu and you look at their branding, that's shifted a ton over like 40 years, or however long they've been around. And so, but I think there's an echelon of people that want to build a brand sub 10 million and sell it, and then that's their goal.
Yeah.
And so, like from a branding perspective, what we're talking about doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
It's more of like, can you find an arbitrage opportunity?
Yeah.
Can you build a cool brand? And do you have a strategy to like get to the numbers you want to sell it? That's not my goal.
Yeah.
And so it takes time.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's in a rush now. Like like the phone, like the social media, everybody needs to be there right now. And it's like, no, dude, I started at 19 and I'll be doing it at like 39, 49, 59.
Yeah.
And so, and by that point, like you can imagine, and I look at like those legacy brands like an Under Armour or a Nike or Lulu, or Arc'teryx, right?
Yeah.
Like these are sick brands that have been taken decades, but everyone just wants to turn it on.
Yeah.
And you just have to get comfortable with like, you're not going to do that.
Okay, so question for you. You are in my opinion, one of the most competitive spaces, like health, wellness, fitness, supplements is one of the most competitive spaces. How do you predict future trends and where the industry's going to stay on top of it so you don't become irrelevant? With so many competitors out there, that's got to be, whether tangible, he said, whether you have a department, like, how are you staying relevant for so long? Does that make sense? Like how, for people out there, they're like, oh, I have a product, whatever it is, I want to go supply it at Alibaba and everything else. How do you predict what's actually going to be relevant 2, 3, 4 years when you get it off the ground and it's kind of running and you can choose which products are going to start? What's your product line that's coming?
I'll give you a different answer for me versus somebody else.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know if somebody starting would be able to predict 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Like, and if you asked me, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would just follow my intuition and build.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think I'm way more of an operator and way more tactical than people that I would compete with. And so if they're going to compete with me, you need to be good. Yeah. And for me, I'm just constantly absorbing everything. So for me to get, like I own, the only thing I do is this.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's going to do, let's say you want to compete against a brand like mine, and let's say you have the resources, like, do you have a family? And how much time is the family going to take from you? Like 50% of your time?
Yeah.
Or let's say you have capital constraints. And so there's a million constraints.
Yeah.
I don't have them.
Yeah.
I do this.
Yeah.
And so for me to stay ahead, it's all I do.
Yeah.
And it would be horrible to I don't want to compete against people like me.
Yeah.
Now, and that's why we've moved like this. It's just, this is the only thing I'm focused on.
Yeah.
Now, if you're starting out, are you passionate? Like, does it feel like work? Like, none of this feels like work to me.
Yeah.
That's a horrible person to compete against. Because that moment where you're just like 7 p.m., you're just done.
Yeah.
I'm going. I don't care.
Yeah.
So that's a horrible, you got to watch that.
Yeah.
I watch that.
Yeah.
Depending on who you're going to compete with, where are they going, what's their vision, how big is their vision? Because that's what consumes your competition. Because the second, like, people make mistakes, they get comfortable, they get complacent, they're not paranoid, and then they get eaten. Or just the market swings.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of brands that we compete with that have slowed down. You don't see them post on social media. They're not flexing. And it's just like, yeah, I saw that coming 2 years ago. And it's just, they don't understand economics. So they don't follow macroeconomic shifts. They're not understanding the microeconomics of their industry. They're not smart. Like, they're not educating themselves at the rate that they should be to keep up with their business.
Yeah.
And so they're not hiring great level talent that can come in and teach them. And so to stay ahead, you need to be doing all those things and just be paranoid. Now, if you're starting out, you should find something that you like you should have like a thirst for knowledge to just only do that, right? And as you focus on that, you just get really good.
Yeah.
Like Naval Ravikant. Have you heard of him? So he's got a great book, and he's got these like these guidelines on how to get rich without being lucky. And he's like, the quote I said there, where it's like, if it feels like play, but it is work, like you don't want to compete against those types of people. I'm butchering that, but that's the analogy.
Yeah.
And I only do things that feel like that. Like I'm lucky now. Like when I started, I'm not lucky, I worked for it, but when I started, I was living in the trailer. I'm working $12 an hour customer service. Yep. I did that 3:30 to midnight shift.
Yeah.
From 19 to or 18-ish. And I'm bodybuilding.com at that time. I'm 18. I fucking love training.
Yeah.
Can I cuss? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I love training, and all my friends work there.
Yeah.
And so 18 to 20, and then you've had AJ on.
Yep.
I meet AJ at a meetup.
Oh, sick.
And I just bug him. I'm like, hey man, I want to work for you.
Yeah.
I'll work for you for free. And he's like, I'll pay you. And he pays me $14 an hour. Cool. I'm in. And I learned from him for the next 5 years while I'm building Gym Reapers, right? And then I leave and I do this full time. Now at the scale that we're at, I don't need to be in the business. Mm-hmm. The business runs and it can grow. So for me to only focus on things that I'm passionate about and like be dialed in on that, I have that privilege now. Because back then I had 3:30 to midnight I had to work. I had 8 to 5 I have to work. So I'm working in the hours in between.
Yep.
That's when you're starting and you're trying to build a vision to what you want to do. You need to find something that will push you in those other hours. Yeah. Because it's not simple.
Yep.
Your life you have nuance in it, right? And I think people don't think that through. Yeah. That's the thing that holds people back.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're creating products, you are naturally going to, if you want to get into a product-based business, people often will stretch themselves out of what they already know. Yeah. And that's not smart. Okay. Your leg up is your knowledge and experience in life and what you're passionate about. There's a reason that you loved powerlifting and this is what you ended up doing. When you can find a product that you're already consuming and you see the weak points and you've shopped it all out and you realize it's not there, that's when you win. That's how you start that obsession around something, is because it's a part of your life and you're the customer and you tried to find it and it wasn't there. I feel like people that start product businesses, they just go to Amazon and they're like, what's selling the best? I want to make that. When you have no leg up against anyone, if that's how you do it, find your niche that you're passionate about from day one and then start modifying that because you have a leg up on everyone else.
No, yeah, you're spot on. But I think too, like I got like I'm passionate about it, but MJ DeMarco, have you heard of him? Mm-mm. He's got a book called The Millionaire Fast Lane. Cool. And in it, he talks about sense. Like your business needs to make sense. And you need to have there's these 5 elements. Element of control, entry, need, time, and scale. So sense is and for most people that start a business, they don't feel a need, right? Yep. They just like this is cool. Now my need was pain, and I understood what made a good knee sleeve. Yep. Now if you're a world-class competitive powerlifter, there's probably sleeves that you're going to wear that aren't my brand. Yeah. I need to make a sleeve for that need. But for anybody who's not like a competitive powerlifter, like I wouldn't, like if I'm going to go squat 500 pounds, my knee sleeve is not going to cut it for me. Yeah. I didn't make it for that person. I'll make another version for that person. Yeah. But when you're thinking about need, you can make a business that you're not necessarily passionate about. Is it going to be as easy to work on it as the guy who is passionate about it? Probably not. Yeah. But if you have need, you have a tailwind, and then you start to build product market fit if you understand brand, and you can get distribution and you can build a team. But like people don't even think that way. They don't have the skeleton of how to approach a business idea. Yeah. And I don't even like business plan. I never made a business plan. Yeah. Actually, I'll talk about BSU real quick because I submitted a business plan to BSU for their entrepreneurship. Oh, cool. It's my business plan for Gym Reapers. Oh, really? And they rejected it. And they said it was a terrible business plan. Yeah. So school sucks, dude. Like most, unless you're going to like an Ivy League school where you have world-class business operators coming in to teach you, like a Stanford.
Yep.
Like, what are you getting out of that?
Yep.
And I did get a degree at BSU, and it didn't do anything. But just to give BSU that shout out.
We preach it all the time. So
now I will say, if you're an attorney, a CPA, if you want to get an MBA because you can apply some sort of high-level operations to a business, I'm in.
Yeah.
But you can learn that stuff if you work your way up at Amazon or, places like that.
Yeah.
Where were we at?
I
went on a tangent. Filling a need. Yeah. And so I think you don't have to be passionate, because I think, like, if you talk to some people, they're not passionate at all.
Yeah.
But they just crush it. And it's because they've built such a great business. And most of those people's goals long term might be to sell it.
Yeah.
Put their money in with an investment fund, and then they don't have to work anymore. Like, that might be their goal. That's just not where my mind's ever been. But yeah, that book, I highly recommend the book. And, I know MJ personally, and his approach to business and the way he looks at it, and he calls it the rat race and how do you get out. Like, that's a great book for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to even just think different. Yeah. You can be an entrepreneur in a business. Like, that's a great book for that.
Cool. So. Okay. So one of the last kind of things we'll hit on in product business, and then we'll jump to the last part of the 7 questions we asked everyone. Supply chain is getting easier and easier. I mean, 15 years ago, the idea of you just like rolling out 5 different products was nearly impossible. Now it's really not that far-fetched. If you were to break down, let's say you're working a 9 to 5, put yourself in 2014, you're at bodybuilding.com. You have a great idea. There's a need, like, this is it. How do you get product? Like, if you were that person, what would be like the 3 to 5 steps to get product at your doorstep? That's something that you can build a brand around. Does that make sense?
Like find a supplier, order it.
Where do you find a supplier? How would you order it? Minimum order quantities. Can you do one? Can you test it? How much does it cost? Do you have to like proprietary molds? You know what I mean? Like, really try to break it down simply. I know there's a lot there, but what advice would you give to that 18-year-old that wants to like get into a product-based business and trying to get that product on it at their front doorstep? Yeah.
Give me an example product. Just like pick something random.
Let's do something inside a gym. Let's do a weight belt. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to necessarily go deep into my supply chain here. Let me do, I'll do candy, because this is something I've been looking at, like a candy brand.
Yeah.
And those are starting to become a thing.
Cool.
And I think there's like a barrier to entry around, you have your major candy brands that own all the stuff at the counter.
Yep.
But if you wanted to build a direct to consumer candy brand, the first thing I would do is identify a source, or I guess identify the type of candy I want to make. And like, if let's say chocolate, I'm going to get on Google and see, can I make it in the US? Like, where's chocolate being manufactured? Mm-hmm. There's ways to pull people's import records. And so, if you find a supplier, let's say you want to do like gummy candy, you could find what's the Sour Patch Kids?
Yeah.
Like whatever company owns that company, pull their import records, see where they're making it. Most likely, when you reach out to that person, they're not going to respond to you. Why should they? Shouldn't. Yeah. There's no reason for them to respond to you.
Yeah.
And so you could work with a sourcing agent that you could find. This is just Googling, right? It's just spending time Googling, calling people. But let's say you find a sourcing agent and they are in the industry and they know candy, they know the main suppliers. That person is your credibility into that facility. Same thing with like shoes. Like if you're going to go find a Mexico factory that manufactures shoes, there's middlemen that will communicate between the brand and the factory owner, because the factory owner is not going to trust you.
Yeah.
And why should they?
Yeah.
And so as you reach out to these people, you can begin a negotiation, and you can ask for MOQs, you ask for their product catalog, ask for their capabilities. If you have a formula or like a recipe for the candy, or even like talking about like a shoe, do you have a pattern? Do you have a tech pack? Do you have a materials library? And so this is stuff you want to get sorted prior. So like build a tech pack, understand where your fabrics are going to come from, right? Or your recipe, like where the raws are going to come from.
Yeah.
And the factory is going to need that stuff, because the factory is not just sitting on all the stuff you need to go make it. But I think a lot of people think that they're just like, oh, I'll the amateur way is like, I'll just reach out and say, make this for me. And then they'll get it. And that's just a great way to walk into a lot of problems down the line. But if you have your list of of what is involved in your product, and you find a great agent, an agent is just a middleman, especially if you're overseas or in a country that you're not going to travel to up front. The best way is to travel to it and just like have a connection there that you can go meet in person. You'll do way more in person. And then once you have the catalog and you have an understanding of what the product is, you can start sampling. And then as you work towards a final sample, you can work towards, in the interim, making getting costing. And then you'd probably circle back with your costing and seek to understand, is the costing going to align to my price and like all these other things. And for a lot of people, I think starting, it doesn't, right? So what can you do? Like, do you have to raise money, or is there a way where you can work with the factory? Like there's ways to get your order in, but to properly get a supplier on board, like I would recommend having your tech pack, like your recipe, like that dialed in, so that when you approach them, you're approaching them with a plan, and then they can see, okay, like this guy's serious, he knows what he's doing, or at least he seems to know what he's doing. And you can kind of take those steps to get an order going.
Do you ever, and this is more just curiosity on my part, do you ever, instead of walking in with that recipe or with that shoe, grab their product category, their product catalog, there we go. Are you making tweaks to existing stuff they do, since you networked into the factory that does Sour Patch Kids? Are you just making tweaks to what they're already doing, or do you usually come in with a brand new idea and iterate off that until you get it to perfection? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends on what need you're trying to fill. So it's like, is your candy better, or is your shoe, like, what's different? And because let's say like shoes are super complex, and then patents are owned by Nike, Adidas. Like, so you're gonna have to understand, is anything of what I'm making patented? And this is where if you have your own design, and like factories overseas, they might not even care if it's patented. They're going to sell it to you anyway. And that happens. And so it's better to have your own design. What you're talking about is private labeling. And you can do that. It's one way to do it. I think understanding the need you're trying to solve for and approaching the product with that adjustment would be smart. But that might be a level beyond private label. And then it could be yours. Like, it could be uniquely your brand's. And my perception today is way different than 10 years ago. Right. But, that's.
Last question. How much do those agents cost? Like, what kind of money would you need to do what you just said?
They could be cheap. I mean, or like very affordable, like $2,000 a month,
Really?
$2-3 a month, or you pay them on a project basis. You could probably, depending on how complex the supply chain is, like, it depends on the level at which that person's going to operate at. We are building our own facility to make our own belts. That's why I don't really want to explain too much of it. But like, that's way more intensive, and like that person's going to make way more, and it's going to require way more resources. But if you're starting, you find somebody on Upwork, find somebody through a mutual connection. You go to these meetups and you can meet people that, I need a sourcing agent for this. Do you know anybody? And then a sourcing agent might know another sourcing agent, because it's all, if you're sourcing in Asia, it might be in Taiwan. Like, so the agents are all in Taiwan. Or if you're sourcing in Mexico, they might all be in like a specific, like Monterey, because that's where a lot of the factories are going. And so, I'd start on Upwork.
Cool.
It could be relatively affordable.
Cool. It's cool to watch literally embody exactly what we talk about all the time on social media. Wages are not keeping up. It's nearly impossible for someone to have a 9-to-5 job today. And at the pace we're going with inflation and wages, it's a ticking time bomb. You know what I mean? Like, eventually it's not going to work. And so the need for people to be able to start in the back of their van selling, or start these side hustles, or work outside their 9-to-5 and see success. Congrats on your success. It's cool to watch someone that has actually lived the American dream, if you would, that so many people are chasing. And then you get to this point, like the last 5 minutes, that was a masterclass right there alone for people that are looking to get in the product industry. But There are so many people out there you can learn from. You can start with the YouTube university and Google and everything. Then once you get to that level, you're just always seeking a mentor that's 2 steps ahead of you. Now you're looking at CEOs that are making $200 million because of where you're at. But if you can just find that person that can help you take the next 2 steps and then just constantly level up your mentor game, it is completely doable to build $1 million brands, multi-million dollar brands in almost any industry, but the product industry, if you can fill a need, get passionate about it, and then figure out how to make it work. So that's really, really cool. Okay. So we ask the same 7 questions to everyone at the end of these things. And this is more, my whole page is around financial literacy, money, investing, all that kind of stuff. So I'll fire these questions at you. These are kind of rapid fire, but more just interesting. So this is a 2-part. It's going to be worst and best, but let's start with worst so we can end on a good note. What is the worst investment you have ever made?
Worst investment. Like you're talking where I put my money in with an expectation of getting a return.
Yeah. I mean, that's where a majority of people take it. Some people do it inside their business, but what's like a bad investment you've made? And then I'm assuming there was a lesson you learned from it, but
yeah, like most of my investments have worked out for me. I would say like one inside the business has been, focusing on a low margin product and like not understanding the margins that would be required. So if you're going to run advertising and get OpEx, like that's going to require to scale the business, let's say your gross margin on a product-based business is going to be 30%. Well, 30% gross margin is terrible because you're going to have to run ads, which that like, let's just say, I'll break this down. So on 100% of
sales,
25% should go to cost of goods, not 70, right? Because 25% is going to go to your operating expenses, 25% is going to go to your marketing, and 25% hopefully ends up in the bottom line or through, what any other miscellaneous expenses. And so if you had a 30% gross margin product, it's not it. And so when I started, I was just focused on like, it's just because you only have so much money to invest. You're making cheaper items that have low margin and you can't scale them. So it's not a volume play. And you don't have distribution. So it's not double not a volume play. And so probably and they're not even that bad because you can liquidate slowly, like buying inventory. But yeah, I through my investments locally, like, the Boise market has been great. I got started in 2015. So I rode that all the way up. The real estate, they've all been solid, but it's all in the business, like on bad buys. But it's over time, you can like have a plan to liquidate.
That's it.
I did own a business that we sold and it didn't work out. So that would have been probably my worst. Just from like an exit perspective, it just made no money and we lost money. And so that would probably be the worst one. I just remembered that.
Okay. What's the best investment you've ever made?
Outside of Gym Reapers.
The
real estate stuff has been interesting. I started when I was 19, house hacking, that where you buy a duplex and live in one side. And the first duplex I bought, we were pulling these numbers yesterday. I bought for $155 and sold that for $530. And most of I had 4 others that I sold in that realm. And being able to like cash out refinance those and 1031 them into the industrial properties has been great. And so, but using low down loans, getting into a property, getting tenants in there, and then just opportunistically selling them or refinancing them and moving that money has probably been something that helps me build outside of Gym Reapers so that's like always going to be there. And I can just take bigger risks in Gym Reapers. And so, and then like the warehouse we have, like it's been a great deal too. It was bought in 2021 and it's probably doubled in value. And I used an SBA loan on that. So you put 10% down. It's the same. There's always ways to seller finance or use SBA loans, like the 504 program. Even HUD for apartment complexes has these like crazy 10% down loans. And so using that, you can get leverage. And as long as your numbers are good and your tenant base is stable, because you could get also that could completely swing the other way.
Leverage is good and bad depending on where it's at.
But if you're secured as you go along, those can be awesome deals.
That's sweet. Okay. What industry are you most excited about outside your core business?
Like outside of Gym Reapers?
Mm-hmm.
What industry am I most excited about?
Like, are you throwing money at a specific industry? Are you investing in a specific industry? Where do you think the most promise is right now outside of kind of your core competency?
I really only put my money in that, in
That's
back
the
in
answer
Gym
we
Reapers.
get majority of the time. It's honestly kind of funny, but
Yeah.
you invest in yourself.
And like, I think what I'm excited about is like the ability to manufacture our own products.
Yeah.
So like learning how difficult it is, what are the constraints, like where do you get the fabric, like the materials.
Yep.
But being able to like vertically integrate our supply chain, which it's a different industry. Manufacturing's so different than having a brand.
100%.
But I would say like learning that aspect of things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If you had $5,000 to your name, we wiped everything away from you right now. You had $5,000 to your name and you had to start a side hustle or business. What would it be?
With what I know.
Yeah.
And I don't have Gym Reapers or the real estate.
Everything's taken away.
Yeah, if I was just starting from scratch, I would have a full-time job. I would get 5,000 followers on TikTok. I would, and this is, you can use Gym Reapers, but I would plug Gym Reapers lifting straps and I would crank that until I get like 10, 20K a month in revenue coming in. And then I would build a network of all my friends, teach them how to do it, take a split, and build a community where I teach them how to use TikTok shops. And then over time, as I scale up, I would have the infrastructure to support brands. So then instead of building my own brand, I would go in and I'd be making all this cash, probably buying real estate at that point, taking a split from everybody. And then if brands want to partner with me, either try and take an equity split, or I would charge them enough, like on top of my affiliate commissions, where I become like almost like an agency of TikTok shop creators. And there's a couple people I've seen do that, but nothing like what I just explained. But they have the bones to it. I think that could be like 9-figure business.
Dang.
Yeah. Just because TikTok, like they were out at our office a few weeks ago. In our space, there's only 300 brands on TikTok Shop currently.
That's crazy.
They're projecting 1,300 brands. So there's nobody on it yet. That's why we've been able to go so crazy on it. But like if you're early and you can build software around it, or you can build a community around it, you're going to capture, like there's these moments in time that happen, like 2012 when the algorithm was crazy on Facebook, or like FBA, which was big from like 2015 to 2018. And like right now it's a TikTok shop window, and it's going to close in like 24 months, I would bet you. Like everyone will know it. Everybody, like they'll consolidate, they'll compress the margins you can get. It won't be as viral. But like right now, like we pay out 6 figures in commissions per month. So it's a crazy amount of revenue that could be made, and you don't need to go start something from scratch. Yeah. And it's way better to have like way more capital and just invest. Like let's say you end up with $1 million in cash and you go buy a business. Way better to buy that business than start from scratch and take time. Yeah. And I like starting over today, you know, you don't have too many decades left, right? Yep. So you need to use it wisely.
That's so smart. I appreciate you coming in. This has been a lot of fun. It's fun to get different businesses in here, different business owners, young, successful people that have done it from this way. I mean, we've had billionaires on here that were kind of not handed businesses, but given businesses that were smaller and they scaled it like crazy. But this is an instance, you legitimately grew it from the back of your van, scratch, to where you are now. So congrats. Thanks, man. If people want to reach out to you, what's the easiest way to reach out? Socials, email, phone? Like if someone wanted to reach out, how do they reach out to you?
Instagram, just Roc Pilon.
Perfect.
And then, go to gymreapers.com, get your swag. And that's it.
Perfect. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and make sure that you subscribe so you get notified for future podcasts, because we have a lot of fun guests coming.